Hello, everybody, and welcome to our live stream. This is the virtual happy hour. My name is Jack. I am the engagement coordinator at the Colonial Theatre. Before we get started, we're going to talk about our membership a little bit. We are going to have our guest on a little bit soon, Adam Lippe. He is our director, creator of Wait, Don't Kill Me, which is going to be featured on our virtual screenings. I'm very excited to have him on our stream today. Oh, hi, everybody. We're going to wait for a few more people to join. I want to talk to you about membership. Thank you for everyone that has renewed their membership in the last few weeks. We really appreciate it. It's one of the best ways to support the Colonial Theatre, as we are an independent, non-profit movie theatre. It's great for those recurring gifts as well. Remember, those are many perks to being members when it comes to concessions, as well as if you show your card in stores around Phoenixville, you get a certain discount in participating stores. So you can look on our website for more details of that. I hope everyone is doing well. It was some stormy weather occurring earlier. And I was worried that the live stream was going to get cut down, but I think we're doing okay at the moment. No technical issues as of yet. Say hi in the comments if you're here. It'd be nice to see some familiar faces. I think it's been a few weeks since we did our last happy hour with Chris Graffalo, our poster artist. Yeah, it's been great. I hope everyone's been well since. And yeah. Without further ado, I think we should get started. I want to say cheers to everybody. It's the weekend. I have some Prosecco on hand here. So cheers. Ding, ding, ding. I hope you all have a drink. Hi, Julia. How's it going? I hope you all have a beverage with you if you partake. Oh, yum. Okay. Well, why don't we just get started? Everyone, I'd like you to please welcome Adam, director of Wait, Don't Kill Me. Hi, Adam.
Hi.
How are you doing today, Adam?
I'm doing well.
I know you're a Phoenixville local. Did you get scared by the storms as well?
I was concerned that the stream might fade in and out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about that. So, you are a Phoenixville local. How did you discover the Colonial Theatre?
Well, I think the first movie I went to see was at the Colonial was Manchester by the Sea. I'd moved in 2016. I work in town, and so since I was a fervent moviegoer and a film critic for a long time, it made sense to go to the nearest independent/art theater and not support bigger chains if possible.
And we are very grateful for that. Yes, it's great when the locals come. It's a great sense of community, so we appreciate that. Now, you don't just participate in coming to the movies at the theatre. You've also volunteered at the theatre. Is that right?
Yeah, I did for a couple of years until recently, and I mean, it's a fairly passive thing. When I had knee surgery, it was not so bad. After I'd had knee surgery, it was not so bad just having to stand around. Simple tear tickets, and if it's helpful because it means the theater doesn't have to have to pay someone to do it, all year round. Then anything that helps the theater out is great in terms of the fact that the tickets are cheaper than they are at most of the chains, and that you have much better selection, and you're showing a mix of art films and cult films and horror films and classics and everything in between.
Yeah, that's completely true. Like, one of the benefits of being a volunteer is you get to come see some films. It's we're looking forward to having our volunteer program up and running soon when it's safe to do so. It's one of the best ways people can get involved. So we thank our volunteers, including you, Adam. So thank you. So we are here today to talk about your film, Wait, Don't Kill Me. So how does it feel to have made a film that is sort of about a virus outbreak? Now, you made it before the pandemic, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it was shot in 2015 and 2017, and it was finished sort of the weekend that Pennsylvania was shut down.
So have people called you somewhat of an oracle of foreshadowing
They have, and then as things occurred during the pandemic, I seem more like an oracle than was ever intended, because of the details of the film are very in some ways similar to what we're going through now, and I always just hope that it doesn't follow along completely, because otherwise we're in a lot of trouble.
Yes. So if you can give people a bit of a synopsis if they're not aware of what your film is about.
Sure. So it's about a viral pandemic. It's about a virus that gets loose in inner city Philadelphia. It takes place specifically in Nicetown. It was mostly shot in Germantown, and the virus causes massive dehydration. And since it takes place on the hottest day of the year, and people are mostly water, people start attacking each other because that their mind has sort of shut down and they're going after other people. And one of the attacks is caught on a viral video, and the military comes in to try to slow it down and slow down the pace of everything. And they realize that they can't do it quickly enough, so they fence off Nicetown and let everybody die. And it's about the people who are left there to kind of fend for themselves.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about your film, is that it shows a lot of different archetypes of culture, as well as the tones in it sort of shift from, you're seeing it through the perspective of a horror film, then it kind of goes to this thing about collective community, which I really appreciate in the film. You said you filmed on site in Germantown, Philadelphia. Was there anyone that sort of was there that didn't really know what was going on? They were just seeing this pandemic film being shot.
I mean, there's a couple of shots with craziness going on, and in the background there's someone out of focus seeing somebody attack someone else, but it wasn't as crazy as it could have been. I wanted, one of the themes and ideas of the film is about, I wanted most of the time when you see a movie that's like about a zombie or a virus or whatever, a viral outbreak, it's isolated place. I think of something like the remake of The Crazies, and what I wanted to do was just sort of add other problems onto people's days, like the characters already have tough lives, and so this is another thing. So this is, some people may say, well, the characters are kind of acting nonplussed, they're not so bothered, and my thought is these are just extra struggles that they're going to have to deal with. And so it was important that it was people with tough lives, and also that it was very densely packed. So you would have, if you didn't show all the carnage, the implication was that it was going to get way worse.
Yeah, I like that it started off it kind of went in a wave of, it starts off with, this is the threat, and then it kind of goes down to people not realizing, and then it just slopes back up. I like where she sat in the office just like sipping her drink, and she's just like, whatever, while all this craziness is about to occur. She has no idea. So as an independent filmmaker, I just kind of want to know about your process in terms of, how did you go about casting it and the whole production side of it? I think it's really interesting to sort of get your perspective on that as more of an individual creator. So how did you end up casting it, and how did it come to fruition from the concept to blooming?
Sure. There were a bunch of false starts. First tried to get it made in Philadelphia in middle of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to say hi to Ellen Marcus, who's here, who's the animator on the film.
Hi, Ellen.
She did the poster. So she was there at the time that when I first tried to cast it.
Well, that poster is quite something.
And the animation is also tremendous, probably the best thing in the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I first tried to make the film in 2014 in Philadelphia, and the casting didn't go so well because the film is not what most horror films would be, which would be about screaming dead white teenagers. That it's about what Germantown looks like, and I had lived in Germantown, and so didn't want to make a movie about people who look like me. So I got all sorts of audition tapes for the one role, who was the one white girl in her 20s. I got hundreds of that, but what I couldn't find were the two leads, which was a Hispanic man in his 40s and a black woman in her late 30s who plays his wife, and then also filling in all the other roles of black, Hispanic, Asian, that sort of thing. And I just had no success at all. So then we went to New York to try to cast it there, and I had a lot more success. And the problem was that the locations were so expensive that I knew I couldn't do it. Just some of the
Shooting in
film
New
takes.
York.
Yeah, one of the locations in New York City that I was offered was going to cost $12,000 a day to shoot in an empty basement, and so instead, I kept in touch with the cast and said, "Look, we're going to shoot it somewhere else," and we ended up shooting it in Germantown, which was convenient because it was right next to where it was written about, which is written about Nicetown. And what we would do is bust the actors back and forth on unnamed chain. Well, I'm not doing any viral marketing here.
Yes, non-spawn.
Right, and put them up in other unnamed chain where you essentially rent someone else's home for a couple of days in order to put people together. Put 5 or 6 people in a house.
I'll get you.
And that was right. That was the easiest way to do it. And when you shoot multiple, on consecutive days, where you have to, you have not necessarily overnight shoots, but if you're shooting multiple days, and because unnamed chain buses are fairly cheap, it was easier than doing it any other way. Doing it on, trains are 5 times as expensive easily. So it just made the most sense. When we ran out of money in 2015 and came back in 2017, we shot for 5 days and spread out over an 8-month period. And at that point, I would ask the actors if they wanted to stay the night, and they would always say no, and they always wanted to be home in their own beds. So everybody would be, on the bus in the morning and then gone by whatever time to be home in their own beds by that night.
So that's interesting because it was shot over a few different years.
Yes.
How many days do you think there was actually filming over, 6 years? 5 years?
Well, 2015 and 2017 was where the real shooting was. The post-production started in 2018 until March of 2020.
Okay.
There were 19 shooting days total.
Wow.
12 in May and June of 15, and there was one in August of 15, and then December of 2015 there was another one. I guess you could say because I went to Center City and shot when the Pope was here. They put up fences everywhere, which was perfect for me, and I shot all that stuff myself. If you want to call that a shooting day, I mean, there weren't any other actors there, and I wasn't there the whole day. You could say that. And I was also, when the DNC was in Philadelphia, I also shot some stuff there. But again, that was me shooting. There wasn't, and that's interspersed throughout the film. But for independent filmmakers, everybody should know when you have a calamitous event, or you have like an event where they cleared the highways. That's footage you just could not even buy.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it. I know lots of filmmakers were shooting currently during the pandemic because you have all these shots of, empty streets and things like that. And whenever we're allowed to make a movie again, that will probably come in handy, because I know that, when they made Vanilla Sky and there's a shot of Tom Cruise running down Times Square, and it's startling when you see it at the beginning of that movie. And I bet that probably cost a couple $1 million just to clear everybody and get the permit, and however long it took to do that. And if you could get that for essentially free, I don't know why you wouldn't do it.
I do want to touch base on that kind of filming aspect of emptiness, but I do want to address one of the comments I've just seen. Will we be able to see the film at the Colonial? So you can see the film on our virtual screenings. We do have a link in the bio for that.
It's playing right now. I mean, I would wait until this conversation is over, but yeah.
This is like your warm up to it, and then go watch it. So it's funny that you say that about the filmings being sort of sparse. I remember when in March, when we first closed down, the Colonial Theatre was doing our marquee contest. I'm not sure if you saw any of our viral hits of no close encounters of any kind. It was sort of our take on movie titles, but with different names that related to our lovely lockdown situation. I would go and take pictures for our website and our social media, and I was stood literally on Bridge Street, and it was like a ghost town in Phoenixville. It was pretty crazy. So I'm glad we took advantage of the bad situation, as did you as a filmmaker. Well, not the bad situation of the Pope being
the Pope showing up is not necessarily a bad situation,
but silver linings of that happening. Did you end up going over? Because I know they closed the Benjamin Franklin Bridge. Did you end up walking over that?
No, I didn't. I didn't need anything like that. I just needed military, and I needed fences, and I needed and the Baroque fences that they had when the Pope were here were basically exactly what I needed.
I mean, if it ain't Baroque, don't fix it. Yeah.
Right.
So
there's footage in the film of a helicopter sitting in place, and people don't really believe that it's real. And I tell them, no, that was real. I shot that. That's absolutely, there was there were helicopters hovering in place everywhere when the Pope was here.
Yeah. I didn't live in Philadelphia at that point, but I did hear all about it. Yes. So the only equivalent I have is the Phoenix situation. One of my favorite things of the film is the special effects, and I think within the first maybe 2 minutes, there's some gory situations occurring. How did you come about that? Was there a special effects artist on site?
So that's a combination of practical and digital effects. I had wanted to stick entirely with practical effects because I knew that digital effects date very badly. And as a comparison, one of the last movies I saw at the Colonial was the John Carpenter version of The Thing.
Yes,
and that, to my mind, has the best practical effects I think I've ever seen in terms of how convincing they are, how they're still scary, and because they did it on set for real. There was no computer-generated effects at the time. And if you watch the 2011 version, it looked of The Thing, the same movie, basically, sort of a remake, sort of not. It looked bad then, and I can't imagine what it looks like now.
I've not seen that 2011 version, so maybe I won't.
There's nothing special about it. I understand they're remaking it again, and I guess pretending that version doesn't exist, the 2011 version.
Okay.
So I knew that practical effects were more time consuming and more expensive, but I wanted to have the effects not look dated. But at the same time, when something doesn't work on set, you sometimes have to fix it in post-production. And I was rather surprised how little it costs to hire someone to do it in After Effects. The early scene is a combination that was heavily storyboarded and planned. In fact, it was supposed to be even more of a Baroque scene, but logically we could not do it in a way that I had. I'm not going to ruin it for anybody, but we could not shoot it in a way in which it would still make sense if we went with all the ideas that I had for the scene. But yes, that was storyboarded actually twice, pretty heavily, and then we just we shot that scene most of a day. And if you can tell, we shot 19 days. There were no other times where you'd shoot one scene in a day, but we did do that. Was like, okay, we know this is the big thing. And the idea was originally that scene was actually on page 40 on the script in the original early drafts. And my script supervisor, Justine Harrison, said that she said, you got to open with something bigger. And so I moved it, and because it would be a shock. And I realized she was right, because it throws everybody off. It makes certain people very uncomfortable, which is the whole point. It's an utter misdirect for what you're expecting in a horror film. For what would normally be a misogynist action is then goes in completely the other direction. And my conception was, this is better because most of the time you're going to have to spend the first 10 minutes of the movie worrying about exposition and laying out all the story points and the backstory and all this stuff. If you throw the audience off enough, you will be granted probably about 10 minutes of reprieve to throw in your exposition, and it won't seem so clunky and heavy-handed. And so that was my point, was, I know who would be affected by this scene. Let's go big and go way over the top, and then they'll be just kind of either laughing or shocked, and then I can throw in this stuff and it won't seem so clunky as it would be in a normal film. I learned from a film called The Reflecting Skin, in which they did something similar, a Philip Ridley movie with Viggo Mortensen, which opens with a scene where schoolboys are using a straw to blow up a frog, and their teacher is walking down the road, and then they keep blowing up the frog, and then they smack the frog, and the frog's stomach explodes all over the teacher's face. And you did not see that coming, and there's blood all over the teacher's face, and we're in shock. And then he spends the next 10 minutes setting it up, and I thought, oh, right, okay, just do it that way. I mean,
Yeah.
then you can get away with a lot.
I have to admit, I was shocked. I watched the film this morning, and let me tell you, if you're eating cereal or anything, the the first scene is like a gore shock, and it's great in that. And I literally went, "Oh my god!" At that first.
That is the intended reaction.
Yes, because
it is to be so over the top that you would have not seen a thing like that normally in a film that isn't 100% focused on gore. It's supposed to be so over the top funny that it gets you kind of in the right mood for the film.
Yeah, I think you have to view it through that lens, and I think the best part about it is it shocks you, and then the next part of the film, as it progresses, in hindsight, it makes a lot of sense, and you understand where the film is going. You're like, okay, I'm on board 100% now. I love that it pushed kind of two envelopes of shock. Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but that first scene I think was.
I was attempting to play with the general misogyny of what occurs in generic slasher movies.
You know what it reminded me of in a way of pushing the misogynistic sort of situation was the way that Alien does it, in the way that it kind of attacked male characters. I don't want to say any more than that, but that's how I sort of viewed it. I saw that.
Oh, I mean, mine was a deliberate thought about how when you see a horror film, most of the time the women get it in very elaborate ways, and the guys get stabbed in the stomach and then shoved off screen, and you're like, that's it. I mean, if we're playing along the rules of which, violence is equal opportunity, I don't quite understand this.
Yes, I would definitely say it's equal opportunity with that. So with that, what kind of other inspirations did you have for the film? Were there any other films that you saw that sort of contributed to how you directed the film?
Yes, and I'm going to give you the artsy-fartsy answer.
I'm ready for the artsy-fartsy answer. I'm strapped in.
Okay, so the three most influential films, besides Shaun of the Dead, is a moderate influence, only in the sense that is a zombie film, but the part that interests me, and that it's a comedy as well. The part of that interests me is that it's really like, if you took out the zombie angle, it's really just about a guy who is totally unobservant about life and isn't paying any attention, and the whole thing is passing him by. But I also think that movie works least in the horror sequences and more in the comedy and the character stuff. So that's what I take from that. And the influential movies for me were Something Wild by Jonathan Demme, because it's so focused on character and small pieces. Like in the chat room right now is David Denny, who's in the film as well, and he his part is comparatively small, but I gave him background on a character. I said, "This is who he is. This is the intention. This is who you're playing." And I said, "Watch some speeches by this guy, because that's essentially who I'm thinking here." And he did that, and I wanted the notion of what happens in Something Wild, wherein the movie could go off and follow any of the characters you see for 1 minute, and you could watch a movie about that person, and you'd be glad to, because it may be interesting. That movie is filled with bit parts. The other thing Something Wild is very influential is that it changes tone so much. It starts as kind of a light comedy, then changes to a sex comedy, then goes to a thriller, and then goes back to silly, serious, back and forth. I highly recommend that movie. Melanie Griffith, Jeff Daniels, and a very early role for Ray Liotta, who's spectacular in it. Also, sort of peak Jonathan Demme films as well. And the other film that's very influential was the Japanese women in prison movie, Female Convict Scorpion. Which another movie I highly recommend, because it fulfills all the genre tropes that have to be in a women in prison movie. Your lesbian wardens, there's got to be a cat fight, there's gratuitous nudity, but in the midst of that, it is a scathing commentary on the patriarchy in Japan. It's a surrealist masterpiece with extraordinary camera work, and the lead actress does not say a word the entire film. It's a sequel. The first film's also very good, but the second film will just knock you on your butt. every time I see it, I have the same reaction. And I've seen thousands of movies, and that's one of the only times I've seen a movie in which I could not tell you where the camera was. Like, I don't even know where they placed it. The camera work is so great, and the whole thing is it's similar, I guess, to the cult film Hausu, the Japanese film.
Yes, I know.
But it's serious as well. But it has a similar surrealist element to it, while also commenting on the position of women in Japan in the early 70s, which you would not think would be in the midst of a generic women in prison movie, but it absolutely is. And every time I show it to someone, they're thrown by how great it is, and they're like, "Wow, this is great!" And I'm like, look, there are other great women in prison movies, but they're all in this one series, so there aren't a lot of other good ones. But the reason that I think of that is I knew that I had to fulfill the genre pieces. I had to, it's a horror film. I've got to have sexual situations. I've got to have horror and gore, and I have to do that. And the rest of the film, and that's why I think of Female Convict Scorpion, is for what I want to do with it. So if I'm more interested in, making the film about, race or class or politics and have these conversations, as long as I fulfill all the other things, as long as there's, and I'm not saying that I am downplaying the horrific elements or the sexual situations. They're there, and I took them seriously and shot them, and they weren't throwaways. It was just, as long as I do that, then someone looking at a horror film will be pleased by it. As long as I fulfill what is the minimum that I have to do, then there is an entry point. And if they then enjoy the film, or they don't, and they only enjoy the things that they went to it, I mean, I can't control it at that point. And the third film, I'm going to go way artsy-fartsy here.
Oh, goodness.
I was thinking about it today. I was discussing it with somebody, and it's Tom Noonan's What Happened Was, which is Tom Noonan is a character actor who plays the villain in Manhunter, which is the very first Hannibal Lecter movie.
I've heard of that one.
You heard of that one? Okay.
Yeah.
It's a Michael Mann film. Excellent movie. And Tom Noonan adapted his own play in a movie called What Happened Was. And it's basically all takes place at a woman's house during an awkward date. It's 90 minutes of an awkward date. And I love movies like this, which are all talking and all people just, sitting around dealing with their fears and anxiety. I love that stuff. And so my film is indirectly filled with that. And What Happened Was is basically what if all of your, entire experience of your life was sort of pushed into this 90 minutes of a date. And it's essentially something unimportant, but it feels like the whole world. And so my film is, in a sense, the twist on that, in which they're dealing with the end of the world, but they're trying to handle it as if it were a little less serious by treating it like, okay, well, we'll just have conversations, and this is how we're going to get through it. As I said earlier, like, this is just another pylon for what's going on in their day.
Yeah. I have two things. I like that there is a thing within horror and cult film culture where there's sort of like a checkbox per se of like, okay, this film should have this, this, and this. And I like that you interpreted it in sort of a way that was like, okay, I'm going to have this, and then this is where I'm going to take the film. It sort of reminds me of that tropes of like how I really like how Cabin in the Woods did that in a way that was like, okay, I'm going to tick all these boxes, but the film is going to be about what I want it to be about.
I love Cabin in the Woods, but one thing I was very conscious of, so that movie is like one of the most meta films.
Yes.
I was very conscious of, I didn't want to do that. There are references to other films in Wait, Don't Kill Me, Big Trouble in Little China, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, certainly. But they're not so direct. And I was very much, we're not going meta. We're going to go up to the edge of self-aware, but we're not going to do it. Andrew Hunsaker, who plays the villain in the film, he's in the chat room right now. I just saw him.
Hi, Andrew.
He plays the general. His performance is perfect, exactly for what I'm going for, in which it's almost commenting on, like, his opening scene is, I wanted to put the James Bond villain scene that would be at the end where he explains his entire plan. I wanted to put it in the introduction scene because it meant that no one would believe him.
Okay.
But if this was your plan and you said it when you met people, they would go, that's ridiculous, and dismiss it. I was conscious of there's a John Cusack movie called Grosse Pointe Blank, where he is playing a hitman who has to go to his high school reunion, And when he's talking to all his old high school classmates, he says to me, they say, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" He goes, "I'm a professional killer." And they go, "Oh, well, how's the dental?" And I thought, well, if you do that, and it's just a guy who announces it, if people see the trailer, so I'm not giving it away. Andrew is all over the trailer.
Yeah,
and
he has one of my favorite lines.
But that was the idea, was what if no one would believe you if you said, this is my plan, this is what I'm going to do. And they like, oh, okay, that's absurd. And so Andrew nails it perfectly, because I'm going to just walk across the line of completely absurd self-aware without ever crossing it, because I believe that if you're making a movie that wants to be taken seriously, you can't break the fourth wall, because once you do that, there's not going to be any tension, because you've told the audience, this is a movie. However, Cabin in the Woods manages it where the film is still tense, despite it being so self-conscious, so self-aware, where it begins, in a control room where these guys are figuring out how they're going to fulfill cliches. I don't know how to walk that balance. I did not have the confidence to do that.
I remember being so thrown off. I was like, wait, what? Yeah, in the best kind of way. What you're saying there about sort of the actors there, one of the things that I loved about the film was when it went in that direction. I loved that it had so much representation, and it showed a lot about class and race and racism, and I think that's really important right now as well. So I really respect your filmmaking, your creativity for incorporating that within the film. So how important was it for you to have the different kind of representation that we had in the film? It was earlier, but
we didn't. I guess I didn't quite get into the specifics. It just occurred to me. I guess I didn't, it was hard. Because nobody writes roles for Hispanic men in their 40s and black women in their 30s, there aren't that many actors who still do it. And so it becomes impossible to cast. So that was one of the reasons I had to go to New York, was casting the leads was, oh, well, there aren't these actors, because, everything is typecast and everything is, it has to be this particular thing. And I thought, well, in Germantown, this is what I see. And so let me write that. And then when I was like, of course, this is how, I've got to cast this. I can't stock this with, a bunch of, anonymous white faces. It didn't make any sense to me, because that's not what I saw, and that's not what the movie's about, really. So it wasn't just that I was like trying to make some sort of politically correct point or have culturally appropriate casting, but I guess maybe in a way it had to be part of the film. You couldn't do it without that, because one of the elements is about the government indifference to the fact that they know the makeup of the neighborhood, and that they're basically like, yeah, okay. I mean, those are the people who are going to die. How do we feel about that? And
it was very much to me
okay with that. Yeah. What's that?
It came across to me as like in the film they viewed it as like a virus gerrymandering. Like it was very much that, and that sort of authoritarian sort of aspect on it. It just
they're just worried about the press part of it, really.
Yeah, it like rang too surprisingly true in a way.
Well, I guess.
Well,
it wasn't at the time. It seemed like when we shot the scene, and Andrew, who's in the chat room, and Preston, who play the two villains, who are based on what if Joseph McCarthy and Roy Cohn were in a relationship, which is its own conversation that I won't get into in the short period of time we have here. Their scenes were written comedically. It was not supposed to be some sort of on the nose. I kept exaggerating. I kept going, well, how much can we push what they're talking about? How funny and cynical they can seem like, corners, like going over dead bodies, and make those kind of jokes and just be so, matter of fact about it. Just keep pushing that absurdity. And I never thought that, oh, someday this will just seem like the news. That was never the occurrence. I just thought, just keep and there's an improv in the film that Andrew did that makes me laugh, and in the scene where they're discussing the victims, and again I thought, well, it would help with the absurdity of it, and I left it in, but maybe it wasn't as absurd as it could have been. Maybe I should have put like clowns in the scene or something to really make the point.
I'm loving this comment by Lisa.
Okay.
I'm not going to read it out, but I love it.
Okay. Maybe her dog was somewhere in, it's an expression of what she discovered. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, moving to a different slightly subject. So I know that you used to be a film critic. Is that true?
It is true, yes.
It is true. How did you get into the world of being a film critic? How did that happen?
I started in high school. The reason that happened is there was a review in my school paper for Robert Altman's Shortcuts, written by one of the teachers, and I read it and I could not follow it at all, nor could I understand why Shortcuts was in the school paper for, a paper ostensibly aimed at high school students. If anybody's seen that, there would be no interest for high school students whatsoever. So I went about thinking, oh, let me write myself. Like I'll just, write my own reviews. And so I immediately went to the theater and started writing reviews and put out a packet and put it right on top of the school paper. And that very much angered the editors of the school paper and my dean, who then, because people started taking my packet of reviews before they would take the school paper. So they forced me to join the school paper. And I was there for several years before I essentially got fired in my senior year for not wanting to do anything else but write movie reviews. I had been named the arts editor. I tried to turn down the promotion. They would not let me. And by my senior year, they basically said, you have to write about other things. And I said, I do not want to write about other things. I don't want to cover whatever the theater production is at school. I don't care. It doesn't interest me.
Like, I don't care about Hello Dolly.
whatever we were doing, I was indifferent to it. And
that's fair enough. I get it.
And then, I went to film school in college and didn't really write about film that much except for papers and such. And then in the early aughts, I would be on forums and I would write something, some funny, lengthy piece, and someone would say, hey, that's really funny. And I like that. And like your writing. And then I got hired to write for magazines. And then that, over time would start my own website. And then, started writing for newspapers and magazines and such, and started my own website, was a Rotten Tomatoes critic for a while, was flown out to Denver to shoot a commercial, and voted like one of the top 20 critics in America, although none of you would ever heard of me, but that's fine. And then it just parlayed into writing this movie because I was kind of burned out of doing it in 2012, 2013. And I had a conversation with somebody who said, oh, I want to make a zombie movie. And I said, well, everyone makes zombie movies. Why not just make a virus movie and you can make up your own rules and do whatever you want? Mm-hmm. And I just started writing that. And I realized, oh, well, I'm sort of writing a genre movie, but I'm also writing what would be like if you were making fun of a genre movie at the same time. Mm-hmm. And then it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it spiraled out of control with the early drafts were much, much too long. And then as I realized that no one else was going to make it, I started to make it. Okay. So I was like, okay, well, that if I'm really going to make this, I can't make it based on what the screenplay reads at, which is a $15 million movie. So I kept paring it down, and a lot of the stuff, a lot of the dialogue remained in the movie from draft 1 to the shooting draft, which is draft 6. But yeah, it's all sort of a piece. It all sort of self-contained about how one thing happened following another.
That's great. Have any of your film critic friends seen the film?
One watched the other day. I've never met him. I've only talked to him via Facebook. He started his own film festival because all the festivals were shut down. He was going to go to a film festival.
Yeah, so I'm guessing you didn't get to show this film, right?
No. So he started his own film festival called Dave's Couch Festival or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. And he chose my film to watch first, which was an honor, but probably not fair. Because he then followed it up with some bigger budget, more polished films, mm-hmm. such as Chris Morris's latest work, Last Black Man in San Francisco, whatever interesting movie of the moment that he thought that he said, I want the creator of the film at least to get some money from this. So I think he probably didn't want to watch something that was on Amazon Prime, which the payout is so low that the person's not going to get anything.
How did it feel being on the other side of the critiquing situation?
Oh, I don't mind at all. I'm very thick-skinned, and when you put it out there, it's not yours anymore. So you have to, you just let it go. I mean, whatever anybody's reaction to it is fine with me. The only concern you have is if there's no reaction. Is if I don't care if somebody hates it. There's plenty of reasons to hate it. But I do care if somebody does not have a reaction at all, if they're indifferent to it. I mean, there's certain. I was very, if I was conscious of something else, it was that each scene was trying to do something. Like there was very few scenes in which it's just nothing, in which I'm not trying for an effect or a joke or to get I'm trying to do different things all the time, because the concern you have is, I want to make this entertaining as much as possible while squeezing in my flimsy political points, but also
they weren't flimsy. They weren't flimsy.
I know, but you never know how somebody might take it. They might ignore it. It doesn't matter. But also that you never know if you're ever going to make another movie again. And if you don't know that, you might as well throw in whatever you can think of. And so the whole thing can be seen as, is it disjointed? There's so much going on. And in fact, the movie is wildly overstuffed for something that long, which was because the first draft was so long that when we cut it down to the current running time of, the final shooting draft, 99 pages, the final running time, 102 minutes, which is pretty close because the film is 96 minutes and change before you hit the credits. That was, it's a very, very dense, very, there's a lot going on. I would hope that people feel that they at least got their 96 minutes worth.
Yes, I think I definitely did. I was like, okay, let me see how this is for an hour and 35. And I was like, that was a lot.
Yeah.
A good way.
But because you don't know if you'll ever get to make another movie again,
Exactly.
you might as well throw everything in.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're in a situation where I wanted a script I have a script I wanted to shoot in the fall, but I'll never know if I'll ever get to make it because they can't figure out, contact tracing. They can't figure out how to shoot on consecutive days. They can't figure out insurance. They can't figure out, actors union rules. They can't figure out all this stuff. So who knows whenever that is.
Yeah. I've got one more question before we head to our trivia. It does relate back to your film critique situation. I just trivially want to know what film got your best rate up and what film got your worst rate up.
Well, my favorite film is Steven Soderbergh's Schizopolis. And that is a movie he made when he sort of dropped out of Hollywood after he'd made Sex, Lies, and Videotape, Kafka, and The Underneath, all of which are, Sex, Lies, and Videotape's a masterpiece, but the other two are worthy films. And also he made, King of the Hill, which is a great film. Not related to the cartoon, but it's a great film. So he was frustrated with what he'd been doing, and he dropped out and he did a Spalding Gray monologue called Grey's Anatomy, and then he made Schizopolis, in which he starring across from his ex-wife at the time. And it's a surrealist comedy, kind of a satire on Scientology, on language, and all sorts of things. And there's a scene that I actually gave the actors from Schizopolis because I was like, "Here's what you're doing." Mm-hmm. There's a key scene in Schizopolis where a man comes home from a day at work, and he says to his wife, "Generic greeting," and she says, "Generic greeting returned." He says, "Inquiry about upcoming meal." Ooh, and the whole thing is done about, here are all the cliches that we speak in. And then we see the same scene again later, entirely dubbed into Italian, just so we could see the redundancy of language and that the way that we communicate with each other. Mm-hmm. And it's a movie that takes a lot of swings and misses, and has some hits. And I genuinely do not care that the movie fails just as often as it succeeds. I am overjoyed by trying things out. One of my favorite movies of the recent years was called Sorry to Bother You, and very, very funny with Lakeith Stanfield and I'm trying to remember who's in it, Tessa Thompson, and it has a big swing, and it's very funny throughout the whole thing, but big swing in the third act, and I didn't care that it didn't completely work. I loved stuff like that. I will always write about things like, Schizopolis. So I would write about little pieces here and there. One of my favorite movies.
I got your thumbs up.
Well, but I'd always written about that. But Margaret is probably my favorite movie of writing about, the extended cut especially. I had seen Margaret with Anna Paquin and Matt Damon and Matthew Broderick, and Allison Janney and Jean Reno. I love that movie. It's very difficult. It's very it pushes the audience a lot. I'd seen it at a screening back in 2006, and they didn't release it for 5 years.
That's crazy.
Because of editing issues. And then eventually they did release it, but they released a butchered cut. And then Kenneth Lonergan, who later won, an Oscar. Did he win an Oscar for writing Manchester by the Sea? Because he directed it as well.
I feel like that was his screenplay.
Yeah. And then he had already made You Can Count on Me. So that's my favorite movie that I'd seen of the time. that I was reviewing films. But I had to, what was funny is it took so long to come out. I would write a review of it almost every year, and when it would appear in a paper, I would say, "Please make this movie." Yeah, I would call it my favorite film every year, even though it didn't come out for another 5 years, and then only until the extended cut, which runs a bit long at 3 hours and 10 minutes. For a drama, but again, it's great and it's difficult. But I like difficult.
I've been writing about this for 10 years. Watch it.
Yes. Well, it finally caught on. It caught on when it disappeared for a little bit, and then all these other critics said, "Oh, wow, this is great," and then it finally got a following. I don't take any credit for it, although I did get a little bit of trouble writing in a newspaper once and putting Fox Searchlight's phone number as the last word in the review, saying, "Please call them and make them release this." Back in, I think, 2008.
Fair enough.
So the worst movie I've ever seen is a thriller from the 90s called Arlington Road, with Jeff Bridges and Tim Robbins and Joan Cusack. And it's very obnoxious. And what's that?
I mean, that sounds like a good cast.
It is a good cast, but it is very tough to sit through. It's very arrogant about itself. It's one of the most contrived movies I've ever seen. It's obnoxious. It's no fun. It's stupid in a way that it's not pleasing. It's not well directed. It's my absolute least favorite movie, and I don't think about it very often, except when I want to go, oh right. But I guess the worst thing from when I was a critic would probably be Sucker Punch.
Oh, you didn't like that?
Yeah, that's one of my least favorite moments in life.
It's a very like it stretches from people saying they love it and people going, why?
That was a horrific experience in virtually every way. Now I saw the theatrical cut, so I don't know if the director's cut is different. I'm not going to venture down that road. I hated every second of it. It was it gave you a headache. It was coy about its misogyny while being completely misogynist.
I get that. Yeah,
it was basically a rape fantasy for 2 hours, but hiding behind a PG-13, and absurd and not in not a way that I enjoyed at all. And it again was patting itself on the back for whatever its viewpoint is. But I don't buy into it. I don't enjoy Zack Snyder's style. So I didn't get anything out of that part of it, and since the thing is all style, and then an excuse, as someone I know pointed out, is like, I didn't think the movie was misogynist until they start point blank executing all the female characters. And I thought, after he said that, I was like, yeah, I mean, my reaction was a little bit more, something I won't say in the chat was worse. Yeah, it was worse than that. But that's the worst thing I saw during the time I was.
I think the ending, in terms of the misogyny situation, is the nail in the coffin. You're like, oh well, there we. Yep, okay. I see what you're.
But I mean, it wasn't just that it was misogynist. You see plenty of things when you watch a lot of horror films that are misogynist. It was pleasure free and self congratulatory about it, and it was noisy and ugly looking, and it also, I guess, brought in that thing where now people do child whispery covers of famous songs for trailers. I wonder if it started there.
Yeah, I get
where they have a child whisper an 80s song and to make it sound creepy, and that's how that movie opens, is something fairly similar to that.
Billie Eilish.
Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective. I wish we could talk about how much we love and hate films for a whole nother hour, but I am going to move on to our next section.
Okay.
Now, so I don't know if you know, but we are showing The Big Lebowski at the theater. Now, usually on the live stream, I make a cocktail. Now, I usually test it before, and let's just say I haven't drunk milk this year, and I don't plan to anymore after I tested it yesterday. So,
a White Russian's not an easy drink to make. I understand.
No. So the big drink from the film is a White Russian. And I'm not going to make this mistake of drinking that again. So I just had something easy on hand because I want to celebrate the fact that we have your film on our virtual screening. I got champagne! Woo!
Okay.
There's ice, but I'm going to make it fancy. I'm going to make it a fancy sort of aperitif. So I'm going to use my Prosecco here. And I'm just going to give it a little bit of an extra flavor. Just like your film, it has various layers and tastes. So I'm going to add some Chambord to it. It's a nice little, raspberry situation. And what drink do you have there?
Oh, this is a fine water filtered through a unnamed brand.
Oh,
pitcher.
Not fresh Schuylkill River situation.
No. I don't do that in Phoenixville.
No. You might grow a third eye or something.
Right.
So I can't open the bottle.
See, this is where, if this were radio, you'd be in a big advantage. So you just
oh wow, look at that! The colors are amazing.
And I would go, oh, this tastes really good. I like all of this.
So, well, that worked really well. So I would add some Chambord, but I'm not going to because it's stuck shut.
Pre-loosen the bottle.
Honestly, that's what I should have done. It wouldn't have been a happy hour without some kind of technical aspect. So I got this Prosecco. I shopped locally from the foodery and got me some Prosecco. So to everybody, cheers. I need this now. Clink, 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 clink. One day we'll be able to do this in person. So anyway, that's my advertising. We have the Big Lebowski at the theatre because, yes, we are open. Look on our website for various times for the films we're showing that. We're showing Labyrinth, and we're showing The Life of David Copperfield as well, I believe. So take a look on our website. Okay, we're going to go on to our trivia situation now. Now, Adam, I know I gave you the questions, so we're going to see what the people watching think. We're going to go in sort of the opposite direction to an independent filmmaker. We're going to go on to big summer blockbusters. Are you a fan of summer blockbusters?
Nope.
This is perfect.
But I know one question you have, and every year that you show it, I do go. That's a nearly perfect movie.
That's a clue. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do some trivia, and our theme for today is big summer blockbusters. So all I need you to do, you get to, if you get a question right, take a sip. Why not? Let us know in the comments what you think the correct answer is. And if you get it wrong, then, there's nothing to lose. Now, Adam, I'm going to count on you to be our beacon of knowledge for these films.
Okay.
I know you're not a fan, but you can give us some trivia.
I've probably seen all these movies, though, so it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So write your answer in the comment section, people, if you want to take a guess. Question number 1 is, which 1981 summer blockbuster centers around a daring archaeologist who has to battle a dangerous band of Nazis to recover an ancient relic? Now I think
you have to give the theatrical title or the retitled video version in which they attempted to include the name of the character in the title.
Well, I think we can go either way. I gave without the name for the answer, but I think that's a very good clue. Oh, Lisa is straight in there with an answer. Now, I originally put this question as multiple choice of all the Indiana Jones films, but I thought, let me be more specific. So I'm glad we got it on the first go. It is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Not Tennessee Buck. Thank you, though.
Followed by an absolutely amusingly over-the-top and very silly sequel that I very much enjoy.
So wait, that is Temple of Doom?
Temple of Doom. I enjoy that one quite a bit more.
You do?
I do. That opening sequence is one of the best sequences that Spielberg ever directed, I think.
True. I have a controversial opinion. That is my least favorite.
That's not controversial. Most people don't like it.
I prefer, actually, The Last Crusade.
Okay. I think that one is more of a retread of the first one.
Yeah, just like shinier and not quite Crystal Skull. So, Okay, moving on now to question number 2. Okay, let me know if you get this one. Jaws is considered the first summer blockbuster. Did you know that? But what was the nickname given to the shark? So what was the nickname given to the shark in Jaws? I don't believe it was said in the film, but it's very well known.
Well, no, I mean it wouldn't be because that's what they called the shark while they were making it. Because they were having so much trouble with it, and of course the reason the movie works so well is because the shark didn't work so well. Because then they had to focus on the character, so you have more time to play with that scene in the film, which is there's several things that I love in the film, and one of them is a thing that I did not put in my film, even though it's a first film, and normally when you have a first film, you put in everything you could think of, including the Vertigo / Jaws shot. Exactly, camera goes in or zoom out or vice versa. That happens when Brody's on the beach. But also, everyone loves the Indianapolis speech, the USS Indianapolis speech that Robert Shaw gives that was written by John Milius. And but you wouldn't probably take so much time on that boat to do that whole scene and have it play out as long if you got the shark to work as much as they wanted to, and you wouldn't, if that had functioned, it would have been more traditional horror film. I remember when I saw it at the Colonial recently, whenever you last showed it, I was as I said, I've gone, I think 3 times, and I was very struck. You're always struck by these big movies, how funny they are. And Taxi Driver does that to me too. When I first saw Taxi Driver at home, it didn't have the effect. And then I saw it in a theater and I was, stunned by it. I first saw it in 1996 in New York City, and I was at the Angelica Theater, and I was so disoriented by it, even though it was a midnight show. It was 2 a.m, and I walked to Times Square just because I wanted to see how different it was from 1976 to 1996. But what you forget is how funny Taxi Driver is, how funny Albert Brooks is in the movie. And it's only really evident in a theater because you see his big afro sticking out during certain points, that sort of hiding behind a pillar watching Robert De Niro hit on Sybil Shepherd. But Jaws is the same way. There's this hilarious scene where Richard Dreyfuss comes over to Roy Scheider's house, and he's like, I brought you, and Roy Scheider is drunk already at the table. and he keeps like pouring more alcohol in the glass, and it's very, very funny, and you wouldn't think that the movie would have time for something like this. But I think the fact that the shark, which has now been named by Brenda, would not, if that had worked, in the way that they put it in the sequels, where it was, there all the time, or your various sharks, your magical Jaws, the revenge sharks.
Oh my god, that was so ridiculous. My favorite thing about that is that Michael Caine was like, "Yeah, I got it to pay off my mortgage."
No, he said because he couldn't make the line is something to the effect of, I have not seen the movie. By all accounts, it is awful. But I have seen the house it built, and that house is beautiful.
There we go. You got it right. Yeah, I love that one of the things about Jaws is like, wow, I love that they don't show, the monster, the creature, until they have to. And that wasn't necessarily the case in the first drafts, I imagine. But yes, so my clue for the name was going to be the shark in Finding Nemo is named this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but Brenda, who is my mother, got it right. Yes, the answer is Bruce.
Well, did she have a cheat sheet though? Did she know?
I did not send her the answers. No,
okay.
no. From across the pond, I did not. Okay, question number 3. Now, question number 3 is multiple choice. So let's get some answers, people. What year did Star Wars make the Princess Leia hair buns a summer trend? So this is basically a roundabout way of asking what year was the first Star Wars film released. I think that it's basically that. So what year did Star Wars make the Princess Leia hair buns a summer trend? Was it 77, 78, or 80? What do we think in the comments, y'all? Any trivia on the first Star Wars film for us?
Not so much of a fan. I like the sequel a little bit more. I like the humor of the sequel and the darkness of the sequel. I never really grew up much of a Star Wars fan. I probably was a film critic from the age of 5 without knowing it. I saw Return of the Jedi in the theater, and I thought that I didn't like the Ewoks, and I thought the movie was kind of lame. And I've never taken to them. The Gee Whiz stuff doesn't. I don't really get to it, but I do think the second one is pretty good. I do own. I'm going to make a reference to make me seem old. I do own Empire Strikes Back widescreen on Laserdisc.
On Laserdisc, wow.
Yes.
Not VHS.
I probably have that 3 VHS set, but I think I was working at a video store, huge discount when those special editions came out.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was older and they all those came out in like 97, I went with friends and I never took to, my opinion didn't really change at all. I thought actually less of them. But I mean, it's not, I know that seems odd considering my film is at least in some way mainstream in certain ways, I think, that I don't take to this kind of, in my mind, a little bit watered down stuff. And then I like more difficult movies. Well, maybe my movie is difficult, just not in the same way.
Well, going from that to Princess Leia's hair. I think my hair's getting long enough to be able to do it, but it was a trend in 1977.
You have several answers there. Someone has Lisa, yes. And then one of the people who worked on the initial the initial version of the movie that didn't come to fruition, John I was there. He said 77.
Well, everyone there is there with their hair trends. The Princess Leia hair was out of this world. Is that bad? Not bad. Okay, question number 4. We got 5, so we're nearly there. During the drive-in movie scene in the summer blockbuster Grease, what movie trailer is playing? So there's a movie trailer playing on the screen. What is it? I've actually talked about this in other happy hours multiple times. And I think it's very close to home, so I think people should know it. I think that's a good clue, right?
I mean, sure. I mean, I think people will people will figure it out. Lisa should remember that Grease is a period piece.
Yes, American Graffiti. That was actually George Lucas's first film, right?
No, THX 1138 is his first film.
Damn it! I thought I had some good trivia then.
No,
Lisa got it correct. Pew, 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 pew. It is The Blob. Yes, The Blob movie trailer is playing in the drive-in scene during Grease. That's my go-to when I have to explain to people where I work. And I'm like, well, that film that plays during Grease. Yeah.
George Lucas said, I think, that if THX 1138 had been a hit, his career would have gone in a different direction, and it might have been more interesting. Than after Star Wars succeeded, he begrudgingly said, "I guess I'm going to be making these for the rest of my life."
Well, I'm sure his bank balance isn't complaining.
I know, but after a certain point, what's an extra amount of money? It doesn't make any difference. I mean, he was a shrewd businessman, but what would he have done? He wanted to make independent films, and he couldn't really do it anymore. He couldn't make the small thing, I guess, in his mind, because he was attached to this
living up to
behemoth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, our last one.
And indeed, THX 1138 is probably his most interesting movie.
There you go. Okay, question number 5. Our last one is, what is the name of the nation featured in Black Panther? Yes, the summer blockbuster of 2 years ago now? 2018, 2019.
18? I mean, do I have to look it up on my phone? Well,
one of those years. The biggest
not
one.
19, because I did see this movie at the Colonial.
Yes, it was a great movie for us to show, and I'm glad we managed to bring Black Panther to people that couldn't go to,
It says 2018.
There you go. Yes, forever, Wakanda forever. That is correct. The nation of Wakanda. Black Panther 2 coming out next year, I think? Or the year after? I don't know. Soon. There we go. That concludes our trivia. Well, Adam, it's been a pleasure having you for our happy hour.
Thank you very much.
So you can find Adam's film, Wait, Don't Kill Me, is on our virtual screenings, and you can get to that via our website, thecolonialtheatre.com. And theatre is spelt the ye old English way, so with the R-E.
So hit buy tickets, and then it'll have a date on it if it's still like looking like this. That is the date that it started, which is August 21st. Don't worry about that. Just keep going forward. It'll work.
Thanks again, Adam, for joining us. I really appreciate it, and have a wonderful weekend. Where can people find you on social medias, etc.?
I'm on Facebook, but the updates about the movie will be on waitwaittokillme.com. As is the Facebook page of the movie. I don't use a lot of social media, but I will have a reasonable conversation with people if they're reasonable with me on Facebook. Although I assume that people have picked up that I'm exhausting. It's probably exactly like that on Facebook for most people.
Well, there you go. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on our Facebook Live. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, which you already do. We also have our Twitter and our Instagram as well. We'd love to have some more followers on Instagram, where we do a lot more stuff via our story and more interactive stuff there. So make sure you follow us on Instagram if you don't already. And thank you for joining, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. Cheers, everybody, and have a fabulous weekend. Bye.
Bye.